Hi, my name is Don. I've been in Japan for roughly a little over 9 years, and I've been a resident of the Yamanashi area for that time too. Born in San Francisco, but raised in Fresno.
What brought you to Japan?
Convenience at the time. Convenience, as in it was a decent paying job, and I thought it'd be interesting. I didn't want to just be stuck in my area. A lot of people I know in my hometown, or where I was raised, Fresno, a lot of people feel like you can get stuck there, and I didn't want to feel stuck. So I wanted to explore, and that's how I ended up here.
So you first came here as a teacher.
Yes.
How long did you do that for?
2 to 3 years straight, and then off and on until currently now. For roughly a year and a half or so, I'd say, probably. At that time, I was specifically only focusing on being an izakaya master. Izakaya is pretty much a Japanese pub, so it's not just a bar. You serve food and whatnot. Because I was doing it though as a foreigner, my main attraction is the fact that we're foreigners. Because there's quite a few other like izakayas and bars where if you don't know the master or the bartender or whatever, you don't really talk to them. People usually go to these places to talk to their friends only, but people came to my place because they wanted to talk to me, or specifically they wanted to talk to a foreigner. And so, yeah.
How did you transition from teaching to owning a bar?
Knowing the right people. So where I was housed at the time, one of my neighbors, Lisa Shibata, she's now back in, I think, the Netherlands or Denmark. No, Denmark. I'm sorry, Denmark. So she was one of my neighbors, and we became like best friends and stuff. And she was running a kind of restoration type project. And they had their first festival, and her and I, because we became good friends, every other night one of us would make dinner, and we both used to cooking for a lot of people. And so we just like, all right, I'm cooking dinner today, you cook dinner tomorrow and stuff. And she got used to, like, we both would make foreign foods, and because she had tacos for me, she asked if I wanted to do a taco stand in a Japanese festival. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah. I thought that would be interesting. So then I did tacos, and then I was known as the taco guy for like a few years because of just one instance. But because I got along well with her and several other, restaurant owners and whatnot, they eventually, when they were restoring a new street, they asked me if I wanted to open up a shop. And I said, I guess, sure, why not? Just because the opportunity was something rare. And that's what happened.
Tell me more about the process. So, did you have to sign a lease or?
So, because of my visa status and whatnot, and because I'm not going in as a business owner, which would, I think you got to pay like 500,000 yen or 5 million yen, which is like 50 or 35 grand US or something like that. I was going in as just a hiree, but unofficially I was a co-owner because I was the one running everything. So I just had pretty much an investor, But I'd never ran a restaurant before, so I wasn't exactly sure what it would entail, and it was definitely a learning curve. Like everyone that I partnered up with, they all had assumptions of how things were going to be, and those assumptions were very wrong. Like the expectations and stuff. Like a lot of my Japanese customers, for example, they wanted a big ass burger on the menu just so they could show it off, but they would never order it. They just wanted it to be available. As a foreigner, they wanted me to have that available. But they would never order it because then if they ordered it, they would get too full and then they wouldn't be able to drink because it's an izakaya. So they wanted to do like the hashigozake, bar hopping or a pub crawl, whatever you want to call it. And so whenever they would bring a new person, which wasn't like every weekend and whatnot, then they would order the burger for their friend to try it. But whenever they actually came in, though, they would not order the burger, so it ended up just being a loss of money. There was a lot of things that they said as expected, and it just didn't fit. I was never able to fully recover from the Corona stuff because by then the landscape of the type of customers we would get completely changed. You didn't have the bar hoppers anymore. You had, you still have a few of them, but before that street where I was located, that street was known for bar hopping. But because of Corona, people ended up just staying one spot because they didn't want to risk getting sick. And that became the new norm, was just staying in one spot. And thus I lost my main clientele,
So how much was your partner Masa was involved? So was he just providing the financial support?
Just the
and the lease was under his name?
Yeah, so pretty much just the paperwork was under his name. But the financial support was just in the beginning, and then afterwards I was covering all the cost. And so it became like a money sink because I was paying rent for that place as well as other spots, and like if there was any other expenses, he wouldn't say anything, and there was kind of a lack of communication, which was kind of frustrating because he's like, "Oh, well, I was doing this." I'm like, "Well, if you were doing that, why didn't you tell me so I would know? I want to be involved in all these aspects of it, But eventually we parted ways on that because I had some ideas on. I wasn't just sitting down and idling my fingers, doing nothing. I wanted to change the landscape a bit. I was making good progress before Corona. And now that things are starting to stabilize finally, I had a new plan and initiative that I wanted to change things, which I got City Hall backing and several other local shops backing, but I no longer had his backing because he was just done with it. So, yeah, it ruined a lot of things for him, and I can't say anything else on that part. It's his own affairs and stuff, so, yeah.
And if you check the reviews, like the ratings on Google, like it's got 4.8 stars.
I'm pretty happy about that, I remember I had one group really, I believe, and I'm going to just give them the benefit of the doubt, I got like a low rating because someone else was manning the bar for me at the time, and I had told them that and stuff, and they were really tired from hiking Mount Fuji, and they just kind of took it out on our group, and I'm like, okay, But on the bright side, I don't mind that so much because a 1-star and a 5-star, those type of reviews bring views, bring interest. If it's like a 3 or a 4, then I'm like, damn, nothing's gonna,
And if it's all 5, then that's also kind of questionable, right?
Yeah.
There's another thing that 1-star gives you more credibility.
Exactly.
In a weird way. What led you to decide to close it down? I mean, with such good reviews on Google.
It was a shit location. I mean, for foreigners, it was a shit location. For Japanese people, then it's fine. But my main clientele were foreigners, and even though I put like the location in Google, right, and it's on Google Maps kept changing where it's located and stuff, so people couldn't find it. Like when you put down the address for Google and when you put down the marker and all that stuff, it kept changing the location for that spot. And so I got fed up with that because Google is not that reliable, and at least in rural areas, Google Maps isn't. And so, yeah, I had a lot of issues on that. Plus, it's 2 streets that curve inward. And so because it's not on the main street, people don't see it. And that's also when I was trying to, I've explained this to other Japanese people and also to City Hall, and everyone agrees with me on this, in that the people who mostly come to this city specifically, they are traveling tourists, as in passerbying tourists. They're not here to stay type tourists. So unless I have a location that's just visible, it's not going to work out. So I wanted to change that, which is why I was in negotiations for a new spot before they said, oh, we don't have a contract. And I couldn't do what I wanted to do. Like the kitchen was shit, as in like it's a really dark spot. It's such a small space. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. When I first was running the kitchen and stuff, every time I thought I had a recipe that I can do consistently, the ingredients would change. Because the ingredients that I was using were not typical Japanese ingredients. And so I didn't realize that like everything was seasonal, including like canned beans were pretty much seasonal. Like in my image, like canned beans are like things that you can get every year or anytime during the year. I mean. But no, even those were seasonal and stuff. And so they went from like, I was getting them for like 80 yen a can to, oh, they're not seasonal now, so it's 400 yen a can. That's a huge markup. I I can't adjust the price that much because then my customers would get upset. So then I had to change what I was going to make, and I had to keep changing the menu, and such small space and stuff. I needed to do what I wanted to do. I needed a better location and a better setup because I inherited that spot from a previous restaurant that was made that were focusing on yakitori, you know, and I can't do, or what I was serving wasn't yakitori, and my menu has to be specific because, I mean, as a foreigner in Japan, right? If I make a foreign menu, then that caters more to Japanese people. If I make a Japanese menu, Japanese people are weirded out, like, you're not Japanese, why are you making this? So I have to make something like in between, you know? And I have to have specific ingredients to make things like that work. But I mean, you've lived here, so you know that a lot of things you have to keep doing substitutions for this and substitutions for that, you know? And also, I didn't have the time to, say, do a lot of prep work beforehand because I had to do my other part-time jobs at working for different schools and stuff in order to keep myself afloat, so I couldn't concentrate and focus on it. When I was finally ready to just focus on just the restaurant stuff again, the partner was just done. And he was just, Corona hurt his business too. And so he wanted to just focus on his, which is completely fine, you know, and completely understandable. So I don't fault him for that, you know. But at that point then, I had no leg to stand on for that anymore, you know. Like, I can't run business in a spot that that I'm no longer going to have because he was done because he wanted to focus on his own shop. So I had no location, I had no ingredients and stuff. But I didn't give up. I had changed my purpose on what I wanted to do for things. I wanted to work on changing the image of the city from being a passing town to a town where people wanted to stay for more than just pictures of Mount Fuji and then gone. Everything's always that Instagram pic and whatnot, you know, which annoys the shit out of all the locals. I mean, the locals here hate most of the tourists now because of that. They want the tourist money, but they hate the tourists themselves still, you know? So I wanted to change that, and I had a plan and an initiative for it. And I had City Hall behind my back on that as well too, but no location. Because, like, this is a country town area, so all the best locations, they're all like rented and owned by old families who they don't need the money, and to them, renting it out is mendokusai, you know, it's just annoying, problematic, they just don't need it. So they're like, yeah, we can make money, but we don't really need the money. And so there's a lot less ambition for anything, you know?
I mean, so the spaces are what, just empty?
There's quite a few empty spaces on the main street of Hanchidori, where everyone takes that picture going from the street up to Mount Fuji. There's a lot of empty spaces there. So right now I'm still in negotiation for 2 spots right now, but like, you have people bidding on spots here and there, and it's just like, I have money tied down on a few locations and stuff, you know, because someone, I can't say who, but someone invested in me to invest in this spot, right? So I have money tied down in the spot. But it's like a bid and stuff where you have multiple people bidding on the spot. They have to put down like the minimum payment for like the renovations and stuff. And then we just gotta wait for a few months to see who the renter decides to go with, you know, because they hear all of our pitches and then they choose the renter that they think is best fits them, that is probably the least problematic for them in their opinion. And so that's why I'm just waiting on that, you know? And things move slow. As a foreigner, you know, there's a little bit of that kind of, I don't want to say prejudice, but bias, you know? And that's not always going to be the case and stuff, but oftentimes too, because this is a local area, people have connections with certain people and family members. And so there are times that like when I first got on that street, there were 2 Japanese people who were bidding on that spot, but I got it without even trying because the people knew me. That was back then. Now, you know, you have other people with stronger connections and stuff who are trying to push, because you have people who run streets that they're like power blocks, you know, it's like, it's all political with how they do their real estate stuff, you know? And that's something that I was learning too, is about how this street has their own group and this street has their own group, and they have to, their own communities or neighborhood groups and stuff, and they have to do their own negotiations through that.
And you're still waiting to hear back from some of the locations you bid on?
Yes, because I have a few people who are interested in opening up a new spot. Because in this area, there's now no real foreign bars anymore, you know? And like, I have no problems with keeping a customer there. Like, every time a customer has gone there, they've stayed for hours, you know? I mean, you've swung by there before, you know? And the hard part, though, is getting them to go through the doors in the first place, you know? And if I had a better location, that wouldn't be a hard part. Before Corona had hit, the first, I had been open for a while. You know what they say, like, you gotta be open, you gotta survive 9 months before you start turning a profit or whatever, right?
I think it's 3 years, actually.
3 years? Oh, wow.
With restaurant business?
Possibly. But I eventually started turning a profit at around the 10 month mark, where even during like the slow season, slow season before it was like minus $2,000. Then I got to the point when I first started, because
Per month?
for the slow season, yeah, in December and January, because there's like no customers to the snow and stuff at that time. But then the last one was I was a minus 600. That's it, you know. So from like $2,000 dropped to 600, you know. And then when things were doing well, I was making as much as a full-time teacher as I was just doing the bar stuff, you know. And so I was starting to do well, and then Corona hit, and that's how I got fucked. Like I said, I wanted to turn around the image of the city from being just take a picture of Mount Fuji and gone to enjoying the stuff here and like really, really like experiencing it. Because all of my customers too, whenever they came by, they were like, "Oh shit, there's a lot more here than I thought." I'm like, "Yeah, right." You know, there's zip lining. You know, people don't know that. There's a place that you can do dune buggies and stuff too, horse riding. There are, of course, there's plenty of calligraphy spots and stuff as well. You know, there's a really nice winery in the area where they have a really nice organic menu and stuff too. You know, like usually I have to help out people who are vegetarians because vegetarianism is really difficult in Japan. You know, because you know Japanese people go off of the old school like religious view of like fish and white meat. Even then was not considered vegetarianism. So like chicken is okay to be eaten as a vegetarian to them. You know, so like. Miso soup. People don't realize that a lot of miso soup has fish in it, you know, fish stock and stuff. And so a lot of stuff you can't have as a vegetarian. So, yeah. I try my best to be informative to people while giving them options so that way they can make their own choice, you know. But I am currently aiming to be a Japanese lifer because, you know, like, unless you studied in Japan or unless you have a master's, you know, you need 5 years for that. After that, you need 5 years in Japan to get your residency card. I'm a year away from being able to apply for residency card myself. And with that, then I wouldn't have to have a Japanese partner for a business or anything like that. Currently, right now, my visa wouldn't allow me to run a business by myself, you know? So certain doors will open sometime maybe the end of next year. I'm not just some foreigner who came by on a degree, but I'm an actual English major. Specifically, literature is my focus, so I'm a lit major. But because I have an actual English degree, I do enjoy writing quite a bit. And so that's why I've done quite a few writing projects for other people. I've entered a few contests, and I've placed in a few contests. But I mean, my dream is to be an author, but a successful author. Besides the short story that did get published online, I also won a small competition for a poem with a throwaway poem that I wrote. So I was surprised at that. But I had a chance. I was so close to having a script done or having a script made into a horror movie. So close. The key to what I feel is the majority of Japanese manga and stories and stuff in general is that you have to have absurdity that's relatable. You know, I mean, there's a lot of the stories are absurd and stuff, but people get into it because they can still connect with the characters and whatnot. That's the whole point of it. You learn a lot about culture and whatnot through the types of food that are made here. Like Japanese foods are usually more subtle overall, and they'll tell you that how like their foods are not strong tasting and like things aren't as sweet or whatever and stuff. But there are a few things that are very Japanese, you know, as in. Because of their dental work is a little behind on a few other countries' stuff. Their quality can be just as good, but it's not as available to everyone, and it's not viewed as necessary to everyone. So that's one of the factors, just one of the factors that I believe contributes to the fact that Japanese people prefer softer foods in general. See? And I mean, like, they don't like things as sweet as, say, Americans, but they like more food sweet than Americans do. Like, they like putting like a little bit of sugar in like everything. Like their curry, their bread. Most Westerners will say that Japanese bread is not real bread, that it's cake bread, because it tastes good and it's soft and stuff, but their bread is always very soft, and there's oftentimes a little hint of sweetness to it, Like, I miss like sourdough or having a good rye or whatnot, A lot of Japanese people, they're not very good at ad-libbing food combinations and whatnot, right? At being creative in that way. It's usually like if you compare their fusion to like a culture's real fusion on foods, it's kind of lacking. But Japanese people are masters at the technical aspect. I've had multiple French customers tell me how they were like, we had another French competition, another food competition in our country, and the Japanese beat us again. They beat our local chefs in our own cuisine. That's something to be fucking proud of.
I have a series of wrap-up questions.
Oh, that's good.
What's your favorite Japanese food or restaurant?
Maple Pond. So there's a bread truck that used to go around in Yamaguchi, where their truck actually had its own oven and stuff, and they would bake this melon pan, except the inside itself, though, had this gooey maple center, too.
What's your favorite Japanese word or phrase?
I picked up the habit of saying mecha a lot. I'm like, mecha daisuki, So it's a very local dialect of saying like, hella, I hella like this, whatever.
What do you miss about home?
One, central heating. The second thing is having an oven. But the number one thing I miss having is having constant access to a dryer.
What was the lowest point while living in Japan?
It's when I realized and learned that mushi, like ghosting, being ignored, is such a common thing over here. Business was doing bad. I had several people ghosting me because they didn't realize that I wasn't trying to ask them out or anything, and so they had that mistake. And also some close friends and family had passed away also. So it's kind of like a triple whammy of all that stuff at the same time. And being sleep deprived didn't help too. So it helps to exacerbate the situation and stuff. So that was pretty low. Yeah. I was pretty depressed. It got to a point where at one point I didn't know this was possible, but I literally forgot how to breathe for a few seconds because I got and then I just started gasping for air. It was weird. But I have amazing friends, and everyone was trying to help me out and stuff, and try to be supportive and stuff, and they got me out of that funk, So yeah, it doesn't help that Aokigahara is right there. The Suicide Forest is like a 20-minute, 30-minute drive from right where we're at, So, and I do love visiting there, not for suicide stuff. It is actually quite beautiful, and it's one of the places that I love to take people for tour guiding and stuff, So.
Any last parting message?
No one can tell you that your experiences are wrong. Even if something I experienced has been right for me, if it's been wrong for you, that's your own experience. Your experiences are your own. Heed what other people say, but don't let that overtake your own perceptions,